Welcome to this particular training. Here we'll be discussing understanding the world of data and data analysis. So by the end of this training, you'll be able to define data and you'll be able to identify the different types of data in our daily life. You'll also be able to understand how data shapes decision everywhere. And lastly, you'll be able to explain why learning about data is superpower in today's world. Because something I can tell you, and I'm so assertive about, is the fact that data is superpower in these times and seasons. So what I'm going to be looking at, we'll be looking at what data is, looking at the different types of data so that when you see them, you can actually identify data when you see. We'll be looking at the impact of data, we'll be looking at the career value of data, and of course, data analysis in detail. So let's continue. So we'll start with data. What is data really? Of course, what we want to discuss is data analysis at the end of the day. But then let's start with the word data so that we understand when we try to combine the two words together and then give it a proper meaning. So data is any fact or any detail that is written down, saved, or recorded so that you can use it later. So when you have any fact, when you have any detail, when you have basically anything that is written down or you recorded it or it is saved for the purpose of you using it later, then that particular thing is regarded to as what? Data. So every time something is measured, every time something is counted or recorded, that particular thing becomes data. It could be anything, right? The data forms I have, it says it could be numbers, it could be words, it could be dates, it could be pictures, it could be sound, it could be videos, it could be measurements. So far, it is written down or it is recorded or counted so that you can use it later. It is what? Data. Now let's look at a very simple example. It says buying 3 loaves of bread at 600 naira each. Now that is a data. Once that is put down, it becomes a data because you are going to use it at the end of the day. Now your phone is recording 7,000 plus step on a particular day. That particular record, that particular measurement, that is a data. For example, you are taking or you are filling a form and you, in the gender you chose female, that particular thing you just did, that is data because you've given out a data. Why? Because the administrator of that particular form is going to make use of that information that you've given. Now, you took a picture of your lunch. That particular picture becomes data. Like I said earlier, it could be numbers, it could be words, it could be dates, it could be pictures, sound, videos, measurement, anything you can think of that is either written down, it is recorded, it is measured, it is counted so that you use it later. That becomes data. Now, I'll put it this way, data on its own is like unbaked dough. It is not ready to eat, right? But at the end of the day, it is going to make sense because you can now bake it, then eat it. But to start with, well, it is not ready to eat. So let's look at the data journey, right? Data, the actual journey. So data actually pass through a lot of process. Now to start with data, what is data? Like I said, it is raw facts. For example, 8 cups of 8 cups sold on Monday. That is data. Now, does this make sense? To an extent, no. But then you have an information that is already written down. 8 cups sold on Monday. Now, from that we can get an information. What is information? Information is facts that are now organized to now make sense. For example, we can now say, oh, juice sales goes up on weekends. How were we able to get that? Because we've gathered data, which is a raw fact. So on Monday, we gather data. On Tuesday, we gather data up until Sunday. So after gathering the data, we now got an information from it. That is, those facts are now organized. So now say, oh, on Monday, 8 cups were sold. On Tuesday, we sold 6 cups. Up until Friday, we started selling 20 cups. Saturday, we sold 30 cups. So what is the information from that particular place? We say that what juices goes up on weekends. That is information that was gotten from that raw fact. Now, what is now insight, right? Insight is now a conclusion or a discovery based on our information. And we got our information from our data. And an example says, oh, I sell the most juice on Saturday. That is an insight I got from my information because juice sales went up on weekends. So, what is the action I will not take based on my insight, right? For example, based on this example I'm giving now, what will happen? Oh, since I know that I have more sales during weekends, I can hire extra help on weekends so that I can meet up whatever I have to do. Now, for example, you sell juice and you record daily sales, just like I said earlier on, using the numbers I have here. Monday 8, the following day 10, we have 15, 12, 18, 25, 30. That record alone is data. Does it make sense? No, because those are just numbers. But you now notice that, oh, weekend, you have the biggest sales. That is information. Then when you now decide to make more juice on weekend, what happens? You are acting on the insight that you have gotten from your information. So basically, that is what data is all about. Now, let's see the different types of data that we have, right? We have different type of data into different aspects. We have by meaning and by shape. Now, not all data are the same. Knowing the type of data that you have helps you to choose the right way to study your data. Now, to start with, for example, we have qualitative data, we have quantitative data, we have structured and unstructured data. So when we talk about qualitative data, what are we talking about? We're talking about words and label. That is, we're talking about categories, right? And they're also divided into two, which is nominal and ordinal. When we talk about nominal, that is, they don't have any order. For example, red, blue, green. When we're talking about ordinal, they have orders. Talking about stuff that is poor, good, better, etc. When we're talking about quantitative data, we're talking about numbers, right? It could be discrete, it could be continuous. And when we're talking about structured and unstructured data, when we talk about structured data, we're talking about data that are neatly arranged in tables. For example, spreadsheet, which is most of the kind of data you'll be working with as a data analyst. Of course, we're going to get to what data analysis is, who is a data analyst, and how all of those people operate. What about unstructured data? For example, messy emails, your pictures, your videos, all of those are data, but what happens? They are unstructured data. Now we have semi-structured data, for example, hashtags, they have no fixed weight. Okay. So how does data now shape the world? Now, data is the engine behind the modern life. Basically, that is why data is superpower today. It is the engine behind the modern life. It is driving everything from personalized recommendation to critical industry operation. So, most of the industry that we have today, modern industry, they cannot operate effectively without data. And of course, in the long run, data analysis. Now, let's look at in our everyday lives. For example, maps. Google Maps use location data to show traffic jam. That is why, especially for those that live in Lagos State, if you want to go out, you can easily open your phone, check the map, and you can discover that, oh, there is traffic on this particular route. How were you able to get that? Because of what? Data. So Google Map was able to use location data, people's location. You discover that you have your location um, option on your phone that you can either turn off or turn on. So using that particular feature, Google can now say, oh, we have quite a number of persons here, right? That means what? There's traffic jam. That is the power of data. What about in entertainment? We have Netflix, Spotify, YouTube, Audiomack. Think of any other entertainment platform that we have. They use data to recommend content for you to listen and watch. For example, if you visit YouTube or you use YouTube a lot and you watch more of, let's say, romantic movies on YouTube, right? Now, if you have recommendations from YouTube, it will be more of romantic movies. Why? Because your activity on that particular platform now became data for YouTube to use to recommend back to you. That is how it works. Even on Spotify, Audiomack, any other entertainment platform, that is how it works. They use data. All these data are analyzed. Then a lot of information are gotten. When those information are gotten, they have insight. When that insight is gotten, then they take action based on that particular insight. What about in shopping? Now, online store recommends similar product based on what you have browsed. So whatever you do, you're on your phone, you're on Amazon, you're on any other platform, you are searching the things you've said, you've purchased some things, everything you've done becomes data. Now, in that particular organization, they have data analysts that are getting this particular record. Once they analyze it, then they know that, oh, this is what this particular person is always on the lookout for. So it means this person is interested in this. And what happens? Anything related to that, they push it right to you. What about security? Bank use data to spot suspicious activity instantly. So it means if you have anything that has to do with the knowledge of data and how to make use of data, you become relevant almost in everywhere you find yourself in this earth. You become relevant. What about it in industries? Now look at retail. Retail are able to predict what we sell and avoid running out of stock. How were they able to do that? By the power of data. So why do you think you go into some supermarket and then they are doing wonderfully well? Because they don't joke with the power of data. And at the back end, they have somebody in charge of this data that can actually read what this data is talking about. And that requires a very good skill. For example, data analysis. Now, what about healthcare? Hospital plan staff and supply based on patient data. So they make use of all of these just to operate effectively in logistics and in manufacturing. So when it comes to data, data is superpower in today's world. In these times and seasons, anybody with the knowledge of data and ability to interpret and analyze data becomes very valuable in any industry in this world. Now, let's look at why data analysis is essential. But before that, what is data analysis? Now, data analysis is you taking a bunch of facts. Just like we said, what is data? Data is a fact. You now take a bunch of it, right? A bunch of facts, a bunch of numbers, a bunch of details. We're still referring to data. And what do you do with it? You now figure out what they mean so that you can now make smart decision without data. And without it, your decisions are made blindfolded. Data analysis basically is you now taking those raw facts, those raw information, those numbers, those pictures, those structured, unstructured, those music, every other thing you can think of, those texts, right? Data analysis is now you gathering everything together. Then when you gather it together, you now try to make sense of whatever those numbers are referring to. So when you make sense of it, you can now say, oh, this is what this number is talking about. And as a result of that, you can now make smart decisions. And that requires a lot of skill. That is why data analysis is very, very crucial in today's business world. Data analysis is crucial. See, if you are making decisions without data analysis, it's as though you are walking blindfolded. Now, I want you to imagine something. You are walking on a major road and then you are blindfolded. What happens? Is that you find yourself on the floor or you are knocked out by a vehicle? Something bad is definitely going to happen. The same thing happens when data analysis is not being done in any industry today. So data analysis is that important, is that crucial, is that think of any other word you can use just to explain that particular statement. Now, what do data analysis or what does data analysis, what does it help us to do? Basically, it helps us to do 5 different things. Number 1, it helps us to answer questions. Data analysis helps us to solve problems. Data analysis helps us to find opportunity. Data analysis helps to spot risk early, and it helps us to make decision based on evidence. Now, let's look at answering of questions. Now, a particular supermarket wants to know why are they experiencing drop in sales. A particular industry wants to look at why are they experiencing drop in sales. So what do? That is a very big question they need answers to. But of course, nobody could answer the question. But then they have something that can provide answer to the question. What is that thing? Data. So they gather this data. Now, who do they need? They now need somebody with the knowledge of data analysis. Of course, the technical aspect of data analysis where you now use the various tools that are needed. For example, Excel, Microsoft Excel, or use Google Spreadsheets, Power BI, or use Tableau, SQL, or you can use SQL Server Management Studio. You can use MySQL, or you use Python, or you use R. That is obviously optional. So with the knowledge of these two, a data analyst now comes in, able to make sense of the data that this particular industry has gathered over time. They can now say, oh, this is the reason why sales is dropping, or sales is dropping anytime we get to mid-year. Then why? A data analyst can now probe further and able to provide answers to this question. And when these questions are answered, what happens? The industry or that particular organization can now make decision. Also, they help to solve problem. For example, a particular logistic company wants to reduce delivery time because customers are complaining. I ordered something, it got to me after 3 hours, and it was supposed to get to me after 1 hour. It got to me after 2 days instead of just 24 hours. So what happens? This particular logistic company will bring in a data analyst, and data analyst will gather all this data and see what is actually, because inside the data, there are a lot of hidden truth, basically. I love to call data noise. What is noise? Noise is an unpleasant sound. But what is music? Music is what? A pleasant sound. So what is the difference between music and noise? Just the pleasant. So if you have noise and then you add rhythm to your noise, it becomes music. The same thing with data and data analysis. Data is noise. They are just a bunch of facts that does not make sense, but in them are a lot of hidden truth. In them are a lot of hidden information. So you now need somebody with that skill. You need somebody with that expertise to now gather all this noise, which is the data, then add rhythm to it. How do you add rhythm to it? That is where the technical skills come in by the tools you are going to learn as a data analyst. Then when you do all of this, you now make sense of all the numbers, all the text that does not make sense. And when you make sense with it, with the numbers and the data that you have, what happened? You are able to answer questions, you are able to solve problems. And trust me, in this modern age that we have, if you are able to answer business questions, if you are able to provide solutions to problem, trust me, you become hotcake everywhere you find yourself in this world. So you can see that data analysis is very essential in today's world. Also, it helps to make decision based on evidence. There's something in the law court. For example, if someone killed another person, right, and there is no evidence to back it up, the person will go scot-free because everything is based on evidence. So in business, you don't want to make decision based on, or organization don't want to make decision based on what they think. They don't want to make decision based on, let's even say, what they even see. They want to make decision based on fact, based on evidence. They can say that, oh, we want to do this because we have seen this. Take for example, now a particular supermarket wants to look at what is going on in their business. Then they brought out the data they've been gathering for the past 5-10 years. And then they discovered, or they are trying to look at what can we do differently this December just to have more sales. What can we do differently? Now they brought out all the data they've been gathering since they've been in existence, and a data analyst took all this data, was able to make sense of it. They now discover that once is December period, they are selling more of teddy bears. Of course, this is just an example. They are selling more of teddy bears. They're like, okay, wow. Since we are selling more of teddy bears, then they discover that because they are selling more of teddy bears, once it's mid-December, they are running out of teddy bears. Everything is exhausted. So people are coming and like, oh, sorry, we are out of teddy bears. They discover that that is a pattern for the past 5 to 10 years that they've been in existence. Now, they are trying to do something different this year. What are they going to do? So it means this year, December, what they are going to do is the fact that they are now going to stock more teddy bears to ensure that once it's mid-December and people kept coming in just to request for teddy bear, they have more than enough on ground to sell out. So what happened? They made a decision. What is that decision? To stock more teddy bear, but they are not doing it based on assumption. They are not doing it based on what they feel. The manager did not just come up with that assumption and then they are stocking. That is taking a very big risk. But they are doing it based on evidence. Where did that evidence come from? From their data. How were they able to get it? Was it the manager? No. The salespersons? No. Who did it? It's with the help of the data analyst that has a very good idea of what data analysis is and how to do it perfectly. Now, they also help to spot risk early. That is, they detect warning signs before they become disaster or fraud. Banks use this. In fact, every organization makes use of this because you are discovering that, oh, we are actually losing a lot of money, because that is the job of a data analyst. You work as a data analyst, or you have the knowledge of data analysis, and you are in a particular organization. Every day, every month, every year, you are always looking at data so that you can see what is going on. And then you've discovered a steady decline in revenue. You are supposed to call the attention. So you are spotting it early. What is going on? We are losing money. So you can see how valuable a data analyst or somebody with the knowledge of data analysis can be to any organization. And I will repeat, any organization, any industry needs the knowledge of data analysis, because so far decisions are being made, so far questions are being asked, so far there is a problem, then data analysis is needed. So it means if you have that particular skill now, you become very, very, very valuable. And also, it helps to find opportunity. It helps to find opportunities, because there are a lot of opportunities that are hidden in a particular business. Now, for example, let's say you are a chef, or let's say you make shawarma in a particular location. Let's say you live in Lagos State and you make shawarma on the highland. Now you've been making this shawarma for the past, let's say, 6 months. Now you gather your entire data. Then a data analyst is able to look at your data, pull out everything there, and is able to tell you that, oh, for the past 6 months, 60% of your customer has been coming from the mainland. 40% of your customer has been coming from the highland. So there is something you need to do. There's an opportunity here. What is that opportunity? It means if you open a new branch on the mainland, you can triple your sales. And if you can triple your sales, why can't you do it? So what is going to happen? You take advantage of that particular opportunity. And when you take advantage of that particular opportunity, that means now you have two different stores that you are making your shawarma. Who was able to help you come up with that? That is what? With the help of a data analyst. So you can see that data analysis is hot cake. Data analysis is everything everybody needs to jump at right now in this time and season, because everybody wants to find opportunity. Everybody is making decision. Everybody wants answers to their questions, and everybody wants to solve problems. So far, they are in any business or any organization. So the purpose of data analysis is very simple. It's for better decision and better outcome, basically. So it means if you're a data analyst, you are a problem solver. And if you're a problem solver, one thing that comes with being a problem solver is that money follow you all around, because people are always looking for somebody to help solve their problem. Now, what are the 5 steps in the data analysis process? We have basically 5 steps in data analysis process. The first is that you are collecting your data, you are cleaning your data, you are analyzing your data, you are visualizing your data, and you are interpreting what your data is all about. So let's explain it in a very simple term. We'll bring it home. Now, think of this step like you are following a recipe. That is, you want to make food. So let's cook vegetable soup, basically. I love to call data analysis cooking. So let's cook. How do you cook? If you want to cook vegetable, the very first thing you have to do is go to the market to get your foodstuff. You get your vegetable, you get your meat, get your fish, every other thing you will need, you will get it. That is the first step if you want to cook a food. The same thing, if you want to analyze data, the first step you need to do is to collect. That is, you have to get the data. And after getting the data, what happens? We now clean the data. Same thing, after buying the things you've bought from the market, what happens? Do you come home and start eating it immediately? No, you don't start eating your vegetable. What do you do to your vegetable? You now wash the vegetable you've brought. You start washing it, washing it. That is what the second step in the data analytical process. So in this cleaning, what happened? You fix errors in case there are errors in the data so that it doesn't affect the outcome of your data. You remove duplicates, you correct spelling. You just have to look at the data very well just to ensure that everything is okay. There are no errors. Everything is in order, basically. Now, what is the third step, which is the fact that we now analyze? That is, this is where your technical skills comes in. In fact, from the cleaning phase, from the collecting phase, your technical skills comes in. You start analyzing. And of course, that's where you start using your tool, Excel, Power BI, SQL, Python, which one you want to use, depending on what you want to do. Data analytics is a process. The first is the fact that we are collecting, and like I said, as though you are going to the market to get whatever you want to cook. The second step is that you are coming back home. When you get home, what do? You wash your vegetable, and the technical aspect. Now coming to data analysis, you're going to fix errors, you're going to remove duplicates, you're going to collect correct spellings, you're going to fill in missing value. And of course, when you come back, you now analyze, which is a third step. And in this instance, if you are comparing this with cooking, this is where we now start preparing our food. Start cooking your food, put it on fire, etc. Now, the fourth step in the data analysis process is where we now visualize. That is, we are showing our results using graphs, charts, dashboard for quick understanding. Now, the purpose of this is that so that somebody that is non-technical, in this instance, your stakeholders, people that you want to solve problem for, people that want answers, people you want to find opportunities for. These are the people you are actually showing this. So they can now see. So without you saying much, the answer is that at the end of the day, you are able to present your findings from the data that does not make sense. You're able to present your findings in such a way that they can easily understand without thinking too much because they don't have this technical skill that you have. You have used your technical skills, you've applied your technical skills so that somebody without that technical skill can understand everything that they are actually saying, paying you for, basically. And this instance, this visualizing, when we are bringing it back home, for example, after cooking your food, you are now serving your food. So once you remember the process it takes to cook a meal, starting from getting whatever you need at the market, then you understand the data analysis process. And of course, the last step is that you now explain what the numbers mean. Once you visualize, you now explain what they mean and what should be done next. For example, chocolate cake is the best seller. I use an example of teddy bears. So we should bake more of it. So after serving your food, what happens? You now eat your food. So those are the 5 steps in the data analysis process. Very simple, very straightforward. But of course, you need that technical skill. You need that technical ability. And that is why you have to sacrifice to actually get such ability. Now, analysis versus analytics and versus data analysis. Now, there's been a lot of misconception, the difference between analysis, or is there any difference at all between analysis, analytics, and data science? So let's look at this. Now, these terms are related, but they focus on different types of questions and outcome. Now, for data analysis, what is the basic question? Now, looking at what is happening right now, the question data analysis is going to ask and answer is that in sales world now, it says which product sold the most last month. So a particular organization, supermarket, so a store want to know, which particular product do we sell more or most last month? That is the question that data analysis is going to ask. And of course, where will the answer come from? The data analyst going into that data, then pulling out everything inside that data, and of course, answering this question. Remember, a data analyst, what you do basically is to answer a question. And another analogy we can use for that is the fact that you are reading a thermometer to see today's temperature, simple as ABC, or you're just looking at the temperature of today, or using your thermometer to get today's temperature. That is data analysis. Now, what about data analytics? Data analytics now take it a step further by now looking at patterns, looking at predictions, looking at patterns. I already explained that when I was using the supermarket, I looked at the sales record for the past 5-10 years or since they've been in establishment so that they can now check what they can do this December. So what happened? They look at patterns. What is that pattern? They discovered that for the past 10 years, there has been a pattern. Once it's December, on the mid-December, we are running out, or they are running out of teddy bears. That is a pattern. So once they now make that when they saw that pattern, they're going to make predictions that if it had happened in the last 10 years, then it will happen this year. We shouldn't be caught unaware. So looking at patterns to predict future outcomes. So they know that it is going to happen by December. We'll run out of stock. It is normal. We've seen it in our data. Our data analysts have been able to show us. So for example, which products are likely to sell more this Christmas? Using the weather example, studying weather pattern to predict tomorrow's temperature. Now, what is now data science? Data science now took everything further again. That is, creating systems that automatically track and recommend action. What is the question? It says, can we build an app that tells us when to buy eggs and suggest recipe? So using the sales, for example, we cannot build a model. We can build an app that just automatically track the quantity of teddy bears that we have, and when we're about to run out of stock, it's just automatically alert us so that we can restock. So we don't have to monitor everything manually. Based on the information we have from our data and the insight we've gotten and the decision we want to make, so what happens? Data science helps us to build a smart model that helps us to track everything, basically. So who is a data analyst? A data analyst is a detector. A data analyst is a translator. Now, what does a detector, what do they do? What does a translator, what do they do? Now, a translator is a middleman, right? You are in the middle, you are translating something from one end to the other, and from that other end back to this. For example, two particular company wants to come into business. One is a Chinese company, one is the Nigerian company. The Nigerian company, that is the stakeholder, does not understand Chinese. The Chinese company, the stakeholder does not understand English. So what is going to happen? And they need to come into business. So they will have a translator. The translator becomes a middleman. Whatever is being said from the Nigerian company, then it's being translated to Chinese. Then the Chinese stakeholder understand what is going on. Whatever is being said in Chinese, the translator translates it back to English so that there is communication. That is your work as a data analyst. So you are in between data and stakeholders. You are in between data and managers. So stakeholders, managers, CEOs, they want to know what is actually going on in their company. They want to know what is going on in their organization. And then they have the data on the other hand, but they don't have that technical skill or ability. Even though they have that technical skill ability, you don't expect a CEO, a manager to be doing all of those things because they have more responsibility. So what happens? You come in between. Then you're able to relate with their data, understand their data, know what is going on in their data, and then you can pass it across to what? To the stakeholder, to the manager, and of course, they can now make decisions based on what you have said. And you can see that this is a very, 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 I will use the word delicate, right? Because whatever you say and they make decision based on it can either mar the business or bring something good out of the business. So it means your work as a data analyst is very, very, very delicate. Is a very careful one. You have to be very careful, and of course, you have to be very, very, very good with whatever you do. So that is why you cannot even afford to learn anyhow. You must learn well, understand what you are doing, and of course, learn from the best. And of course, know all the tools that are required from Excel, Power BI, SQL, Python. All of these things are Python is always optional, but it gives you an edge. That is why I usually advise that you go for Python. It gives you an edge over everybody because you can use Python to, of course, analyze data and go into deeper and further analysis. So what is the mindset of a data analyst, right? Number one, curiosity, problem solving, storytelling. You must be curious, right? Always asking, why did this happen? You must be very curious. Problem solving, you must have that mindset that you want to solve a problem, because what you do basically is that you solve problem. You are a problem solver. So you see data as clues to answer real world questions. Also, you must be able to tell stories, right? Of course, you are not telling story about a particular thing, but a particular data that you've worked on, and then you can now turn it into a story so that everybody that listens to you understand what is actually going on. So what is the real life impact? Real life impact of data and data analysis, right? Of course, just like we already know, it helps to solve problems. So solving problem with data. Now, for example, look at supermarket chain, right? They actually want to know what is going on within the business, right? So what did they do? They analyzed sales, they analyzed delivery data to find that the deliveries or the late delivery caused bananas to brown, because they discovered that their bananas are getting brown. So what can they do? After looking at the data, they discovered that it was actually late deliveries. But who was able to come up with that particular thing? Who was able to help them see what was actually going on? It was the data analyst, who had the knowledge of data analysis. So what is the solution? Then they fix the supply chain, increasing sales by 30%. Now, hospital efficiency, right? Analyzed patient arrival and doctor schedules. Solution: shifted more doctors to busy morning shift, reducing patients' waiting time from 2 hours to 40 minutes. Let's say, for example, the patients were complaining that, oh, we're waiting for too long, we wait for 2 hours before we are attended to. Okay, the hospital the hospital says no problem. They brought in a data analyst. The data analyst pulled all the data from the hospital, and of course, we're able to see, oh, the schedule of the doctors is actually the problem here. So what happened? They push more of them to morning session or to morning duty, because in the morning they have more patients coming in than in the afternoon or in the evening. And in the evening, they can have about 10 doctors on ground, but in the morning, they have just 5 doctors on ground. So after looking at the data, they discover that, oh, better still, let's swap it. We have more doctors in the morning than in the afternoon. What happens? Waiting time reduced drastically from 2 hours to 40 minutes. That is the work of a data analyst here. Now, in an online store, right, they studied abandoned shopping carts. A lot of us have that, and website traffic. So what is the solution? Then they discovered that, okay, majority of those people that have abandoned shopping carts was actually because of the delivery fee was a little bit high. So what is the solution? They can say, oh, okay, once you buy any product that's 20,000 naira and above, you get free deliveries. So what happened? Everybody that had, let's say, a cart of about 18,000, 15,000, then they decide to move it up to about 20,000. And what happens? They get their goods delivered to them free of charge. So you can see basically data analysis is everything in this world right now. All the industry you can think about, a data analyst is needed, and it is a very selling skill in today's world. So go ahead if you want to learn data analysis. Personally, I will tell you, it's one of the best skills you can learn today. It's one of the things you can invest your money into to learn data analysis. So thank you very much for staying put to the end of this particular training, because obviously this is the end, and I'll see you some other time. I remain Oluwaseun, your data analyst. And trust me, if you want to learn data analysis, you can always reach out to me. And of course, we'll talk more about how to go about it, how to learn data analysis, the tool you should start with, how you should start, and of course, guidance on how to go about it. Thank you very much. And of course, why should you even learn data analysis beyond everything I've said, right? I'll make a video on that. And of course, if you are willing to watch that, it will be right on my page. So you just check, why should you learn data analysis? In this instance, we'll be looking at the global perspective, right? And afterwards, I will tell you to go ahead and, of course, start your data analysis journey immediately. Thank you very much. I'll see you some other time.